The first 5 years of retirement are critical. These years can either set you up for a long, successful retirement or leave you with a ton of regret in your 70s and 80s, wishing you had done things differently. So, in this video, I want to dive into our planning software and walk you through 2 early retirement mistakes that can completely derail your retirement and what you can do to avoid them. So to illustrate these 2 mistakes, I want to walk through our financial planning software snap projection. So you can see we have Sally Single here. She is a 60-year-old individual. Now, as far as incomes go, she is retiring this year. So we've left out income. She does have a defined benefit pension plan, 20,000 till age 65, and then it drops to 15,000, a bit of a bridge there. And as far as assets go, she has $500,000 in her RRSP. 120,000 in her TFSA. She has a home worth 650,000. She has no debts, and her government benefits. Now she plans to take them at 70. We've done some analysis there. That's not the point of this video, but she's at 80% of max for her CPP, and she'll get 100% of her old age security. So Sally wanted to make sure she could enjoy the go-go years of retirement. So she was asking for about $65,000 after tax adjusted to inflation, till about 70, and then scale down from there. So the first 10 years of retirement, she wanted to kind of front end load. She wanted to scale it back, but she also wanted to make sure she had enough in the no-go phase. As a single individual, she wanted to make sure she was able to take care of herself just in case. So she was happy with 65,000, then 50,000 in the slow go stage, and then whatever else was left. So as we ran that scenario, you can see we've done the RSP meltdown here. You can see the RSP drawing out. So the effect of the average tax rate is very leveled out. So we have a nice plan here. We've been able to give her that $65,000 at age 70 when it drops to $50,000. And then at age 81 to 90, it actually increased to just over $56,000, just the way everything worked out at a 5% rate of return, ending her life at 90 with nothing left. So that gives her some flexibility later in life. So that's the plan we created for her. But she had a couple questions, and it really raised the concern of, well, Sally, if you do either of those 2 things, it will really disrupt the plan. So the first mistake a lot of you are making is that you're not spending enough early in retirement, and it's that transition phase. So Sally said, look, what if I only spend $50,000 in the first 5 years versus $65,000? So I spend $15,000 less, and thus I take $15,000 less from my RIF account. I've converted the RSP to RIF, and I take, so before we had $36,000 coming out of the RSP or the RIF, and now we scaled it back to $21,000. So 15,000 less, and you can see she has 15,000 less of income. So if we do that, we can see, yes, she's not spending enough. And if we scroll down, you can see later in life, she doesn't even meet the minimum. So at age 79, she's required to take even more than $24,000, which we had planned. And she ends at 90 years old with almost $250,000 left in her RRSP. And that's one mistake a lot of you are making. You enter retirement, and I get it. The psychological transition from save, save, save to spend, spend, spend is very difficult. We talk about that a lot. But if you're not spending the money you're able to spend, one of the big mistakes people make is, well, I'll just leave that in the RRSP. And when you have a proper retirement plan, not one that's kind of scribbled or automated in the system, like a proper deep retirement plan that shows you the proper tax planning and how much money to take out of your RSP, it's really important to follow it. And for Sally, she was saying, look, if I don't need the 15,000, I'll just leave it in my RSP. It grows tax deferred and all that. Well, the problem is it disrupted the tax plan. She ended up paying more tax. She had a huge estate at the end of the day. She would have been better off actually if she spent less, even for a year or 2, to continue taking the same amount out of her RIF account and take less out of the TFSA. And so a lot of us gear to, well, I'll just leave it in the RSP. I'll take the TFSA because it's absolutely tax-free. But once you have a really clear plan, which is why it's important to have a clear plan to know exactly what you need to do, you need to follow the RIF drawdown. If you have Lira, which converts to a LIF, you need to draw that down as well. Any account that's structured in your plan that is taxable income, you need to follow. And so if you end up spending less, the tax plan still stays on track. And so we can see here with Sally, instead of a nice 13, 14% average tax rate, her tax rate actually drops 11%, 8%. It looks better on paper, but when we fast forward to end of life, there's a massive tax bill on that $244,000 sitting in her RIF account. So if we look at a comparison here, so this shows her like through her plan to age 90, you can see her personal tax she's paying through her plan is $360,000. Whereas when we did the proper tax plan, that actually gave her more income earlier. She was at $357,000. So she's paying less tax by spending more early. She also is avoiding a $78,000 tax on her estate had she properly drawn down her RIF account. And this is where a lot of you fall into this trap of like, well, I'm paying less tax early, so that's got to be better. And almost always it's not. So it leaves her, pay more tax while she's alive, so not just at death, but while she's alive, and a fairly substantial tax bill of $78,000 when she passes away as well. The second mistake that a lot of you are making as well is the opposite of this. You're spending too much money. And you can see here, instead of Sally spending $65,000, she spent $15,000 more, not less, but more this time. So she's up to $80,000, which requires her to pull a bit more from her RSP, pull a bit more from her TFSA. And you can see there's red in our program. Whenever we get red in our program, it's not a good thing. It means that she's running out of money. Now, I can override this, which I will here in a second, but you can see by the age of 67, she's running into issues. And so if we override this, and why it's red is because I've kind of capped the RSP withdrawal. She's got no TFSA left, and I've capped the RSP withdrawal at $45,000 and $24,000. So if I just copy this down and clear the override, which means we don't want to tell the program what to do. We want the program to tell us, which typically is not a great way to do planning. That's the way your big financial institutions do it. You can see here, she's pulling a lot more, and look at what happens to her tax rate. It jumps up to 17% from 14, and then it drops to 11. So we get a bit of this roller coaster to give her the income that she needs. Now you can see we've kind of got her through that slow go stage at $50,000, but again, we hit red again at age 81. And so if she did this, if we go recommendations at age 81, instead of $56,000 a year, she'd only have $44,000 a year. So not only has she created a bit of a tax issue for herself, but that flexibility later in life has been diminished. And so when you sit down with your financial planner to create a really good, clear retirement plan, understand what the implications are if you do spend more. And again, maybe spending more in 1 year would have been fine for Sally. Or maybe she was okay having $50,000 later in life, and what could that mean earlier in life? So again, there can be some movement here. But the big piece is I want you to take two things away from this video is that when you have a good tax plan, the drawdown of your RIF and LIF and any other taxable accounts, make sure to follow that, right? The lever account, if you need a little bit more, a little bit less, that's typically your non-registered investment account if you have one, or your TFSA account, your tax-free savings account. Those are your lever accounts. Now again, for Sally, her TFSA ran out. That's a problem. Now she has no flexibility in her plan. There's a lot of issues there. So again, work through that with your planner to see what that could look like. The second takeaway I want you to have is stress test your plan. Like look at these kind of things that we went through with Sally to say, look, if you don't spend as much, you still need to follow the RIF plan. But obviously you can always spend less. Now, again, you've worked hard to get to retirement. Why spend less? Go spend your money. Go enjoy your retirement. Do the things you want to do. Now, you may have more than you'll ever spend. That's a great problem to have. But for most of you, you're coming to get a retirement plan to make sure you can optimize to spend every dollar you've worked hard to earn and build up. So make sure to follow your plan. So again, follow the RIF drawdown and stress test a plan to see what happens if I do spend a little bit more or spend a little bit less. How does that incorporate into my plan, and what does it look like going forward? So hopefully this helps you avoid these two mistakes, helps you understand if you spend a little bit more or less, how it could impact the plan and what you need to do to make sure to protect yourself from paying more taxes. We'll see you in the next video.